In a world of shifting alliances and mounting global tensions, even the most familiar parts of our daily lives can become entangled in international drama. The humble apple, once a simple symbol of health and abundance, now stands at the crossroads of a much larger geopolitical struggle, its journey from orchard to table suddenly fraught with uncertainty. From the vibrant markets of Mexico City, where apples were once a staple, to the busy shipping docks of Halifax, a crisis is quietly but powerfully unfolding at the very heart of American agriculture. The once reliable stream of US-grown apples, which for decades flowed freely to our neighbors, has now ground to a sudden and alarming halt, leaving growers and exporters in limbo. But this crisis is about far more than just fruit. It's about the livelihoods of thousands of families, the delicate balance of international relations, and the hidden fragility of the global supply chains we all depend on. Shipments that once crossed the Canadian border with ease are now being turned away, caught in a web of new regulations and political standoffs. Meanwhile, Mexico, once the largest and most reliable buyer of American apples, has abruptly cut U.S. producers out of the market, signing a new trade deal that favors local growers and leaves American exporters scrambling for alternatives. The impact is devastating and deeply personal, threatening not just an industry but the very fabric of rural communities across America, where apple farming has been a way of life for generations. Tonight, we trace the tangled origins of this crisis, from simmering trade disputes and retaliatory tariffs, to the escalating economic warfare that now threatens to reshape the global food landscape. As warehouses overflow with unsold fruit and the financial losses mount, the question becomes more urgent than ever. How did we reach this breaking point? And is there a path to recovery for an industry so deeply woven into America's identity? The world is watching closely as one of America's most iconic and enduring industries faces its greatest challenge in a generation, with the outcome still uncertain and the stakes higher than ever before. To understand the crisis, you have to grasp the apple's importance to the U.S. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, supporting tens of thousands of jobs from the Pacific Northwest to the Northeast. 1 in 4 apples grown for the fresh market is exported, making international trade essential for survival. Mexico and Canada have long been the most reliable buyers, creating a deeply integrated North American market. The sudden closure of these export markets isn't just a downturn, it's an existential threat. With nowhere to send their surplus, growers face a collapse in prices and mounting uncertainty. The stability that exports once provided has vanished, leaving the industry in crisis. This crisis didn't appear overnight. It's the result of escalating trade disputes and protectionist policies. In April 2025, the U.S. announced new tariffs targeting key export markets, including Mexico and Canada. Agricultural leaders warned of retaliation, knowing that iconic products like apples are often the first targets in a trade war. By summer, tensions escalated as the U.S. imposed restrictions on Canadian and Mexican produce, deepening mistrust. Diplomatic relations frayed, with Canada even issuing a travel advisory for its citizens. The apple industry fought back, sending delegations to Washington to plead for de-escalation and a return to stable trade. Despite their efforts, protectionist policies continued. The stage was set for devastating retaliation from Canada and Mexico. The result? A crisis that now threatens the very survival of American apple growers. The warning signs were there. Now, the consequences are unavoidable. The Canadian government's complete and immediate ban on U.S. apple imports sent shockwaves through American agriculture. Trucks loaded with millions in fresh apples were turned away at the border, closing off the second-largest export market overnight. For decades, the U.S. and Canada enjoyed open agricultural trade, but this ban marks a dramatic break. Ottawa cited the need to protect Canadian producers and retaliate against U.S. tariffs, but the move is widely seen as a calculated political statement. The timing couldn't be worse. Harvest season is at its peak, and warehouses are overflowing with unsold fruit. Redirecting these shipments is nearly impossible, and the domestic market is already saturated. The closure of the Canadian border has created a logistical and financial nightmare for American growers. Many now face bankruptcy, their entire season's plans upended. The message from Canada is clear. Trade pressure comes with real consequences. While Canada's ban was a direct blow to the U.S. apple industry, Mexico's strategic shift may be even more damaging. This move is not just a reaction to current trade tensions, but a calculated decision to diversify its agricultural imports. Mexico, once the top buyer of U.S. apples, has been exploring new partnerships for years. Recently, it signed a $12 billion agricultural deal with South American and European nations, marking a significant shift in its trade policy. This isn't a temporary move, it's a long-term restructuring of North American trade. The agreement includes not just apples but a variety of agricultural products, ensuring a steady supply from new sources. The deal locks in new suppliers for years, providing stability and reducing dependency on U.S. imports. This move is carving up market share once dominated by U.S. growers. Even if relations improve, reclaiming that position will be an uphill battle. The new suppliers are already establishing their presence in the Mexican market. U.S. apple exports to Mexico have plummeted, causing a ripple effect throughout the industry. The door is now effectively closed and the U.S. apple industry is feeling the strain. The loss of both Canada and Mexico removes the two largest pillars of the U.S. export strategy, leaving a significant gap. American growers are left scrambling for new buyers in a hostile global market. They are exploring new markets in Asia and the Middle East, but these efforts will take time to bear fruit. The impact is immediate and severe, millions in lost sales, and the financial strain is evident. The future looks increasingly uncertain for U.S. apple growers, who are now facing an unprecedented challenge. The era of U.S. apple dominance in North America is over, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter. Behind the headlines are real families facing ruin. In places like Wenatchee, Washington, and Adams County, Pennsylvania, generations of growers watch their harvest rot in storage. "We've weathered freezes and droughts, but never anything like this," says one Yakima Valley farmer. With contracts gone, millions of pounds of apples sit unsold, and every day brings deeper losses. The pain ripples outward. Seasonal workers lose jobs, packing houses lay off staff, and local businesses see customers vanish. Communities that once thrived on apple money now face economic disaster. Many growers feel abandoned by the government, sacrificed for a broader trade agenda. Frustration and anger are growing, as faith in the system erodes. For these families, the crisis isn't just financial, it's personal, and it's devastating. As the U.S. falters, other apple-producing nations are seizing the opportunity. Chile and New Zealand, with opposite harvest seasons, are stepping in to supply North American markets year-round. European producers like Poland, Italy, and France are aggressively securing long-term contracts with Canada and Mexico. These countries aren't just filling a gap, they're building relationships that will be hard for U.S. growers to reclaim. Trade experts warn this is a classic case of protectionist policies backfiring. In a globalized market, buyers quickly find new suppliers when trust is broken. The U.S. is learning that market dominance depends on reliability and stable trade. While American growers suffer, international competitors are thriving and learning from America's mistakes. Economic experts warn the damage is just beginning. The initial shockwaves are only the start of a much deeper crisis that could unfold over years, not just months. As the dust settles, analysts are already predicting a cascade of consequences that will touch nearly every corner of the agricultural sector and beyond. Dr. Amelia Thorne of Cornell says this isn't a temporary disruption, it's a structural realignment of global trade. She emphasizes that the current turmoil is forcing countries to rethink their supply chains, and the effects will be felt long after the headlines fade. According to Dr. Thorne, the U.S. may never regain its former dominance in certain export markets. With a quarter of the U.S. apple crop now trapped at home, prices are projected to fall to decades-old lows. Storage facilities are overflowing and growers are scrambling to find buyers. The oversupply is driving down prices, making it nearly impossible for many farmers to break even. Many farms will be pushed below their cost of production, triggering bankruptcies and industry consolidation. Small family-run orchards are especially vulnerable as they lack the financial reserves to weather such a prolonged downturn. The result could be a wave of closures, with only the largest operations surviving. The U.S. reputation as a reliable trading partner has taken a hit, making future export deals harder to secure. Countries that once depended on American produce are now looking elsewhere, wary of future disruptions and sudden policy changes. Other countries will diversify their sources, hedging against U.S. unpredictability. New trade alliances are forming and competitors are eager to fill the gap left by American growers. This shift could permanently alter the landscape of global agriculture. The loss of apple income will ripple through rural economies, shrinking local tax bases and threatening public services. Schools, hospitals, and infrastructure projects all depend on the prosperity of local farms, and their decline will be felt by entire communities. Without a dramatic policy reversal and diplomatic repair, the damage could be permanent. Experts warn that restoring trust and rebuilding lost markets will take years of careful negotiation and investment. The fate of the apple industry is a warning for all of American agriculture. If these challenges go unaddressed, other sectors could soon face similar crises, threatening the nation's entire rural economy. The stakes are nothing less than the survival of rural communities. For many, the future now hangs in the balance, as families and businesses wait anxiously to see if help will arrive in time. As autumn sets in, the U.S. apple industry's future is uncertain. Industry groups are lobbying for emergency relief, but these are short-term fixes. Rebuilding lost export markets will require a fundamental shift in trade policy and major diplomatic efforts. Experts say the U.S. must offer real concessions to bring Canada and Mexico back to the table. This crisis is a stark lesson in the dangers of economic isolation. The fate of thousands of families and America's global standing hangs in the balance. The choices made now will determine if the industry recovers or becomes a casualty of trade war. For America's apple growers, the next chapter is still unwritten.